Okay, the next is when you look around and then people give their experience or their experience or opinion about Japan, especially as working in IT or working in a company. I think there are a lot of over-exaggeration. It just seems like everyone's working overtime. They have no free time. They hate their life. And yeah, okay, I'm not saying there isn't that, but to paint it as everyone's life looks shit, it's kind of I think they're just repeating what someone else says, and they didn't really experience it themselves. That's my honest opinion. I'm not saying that like I've been through hard times, but yeah, it's kind of lies. Half of it's lies. Like most things in life, when everyone's saying it, half the time it's lies. So I'll go through some myths and truths about working in Japan. And you know me, I'm pretty straight up, and I'll tell you. Okay, so let's go straight to the overtime. It is true that when I had my first contract of a company, the overtime was something like you'd have to work 40 hours more to get any overtime. So once you have your normal 40-hour-a-week job, is it 40? Yeah. Okay, yeah, 40. So you have your normal hours of work, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. If your total overtime is over 40 hours, then you start getting overtime work paid. This is the way it is for many companies I've seen, and also my contract was like that. So that kind of system makes people want to do more than 40 hours a month to get extra money. So a lot of people will just sit and keep the seat warm in the office. And it also works with that you have to wait till the boss leaves before you can leave, that kind of old culture. Oh, of course, with new IT companies, they're not doing this exactly. I mean, some people have this culture in them, or the feeling of guilt. But in general, it's not like that actually. It's with IT, just get the job done by the time. And it doesn't mean you can doesn't mean just go home after. It just means that once the clock is 7 p.m. or 6 p.m., you can go home. That's from what I see, my experience as well. They didn't care if I did overtime. In fact, they said just go home at the actual time and just try to finish your job in the hour. And that was with a medium-sized company of 200. But of course, now the overtime with engineers with small company is a bit different. They won't pay you at all, probably, what I experience. But so what happens is, okay, I'll probably have to make another video about this, but in general, it's mostly bad estimates for projects and understaffing. If they had more engineers, they could demand more money from the client, but they don't. They have one engineer, they can only demand so much amount. So it all depends on that, the size of the company, and who made the estimate for the project. Because it becomes your responsibility, and then you start working overtime and all that. But I'm not an employee anymore. I'm a freelancer, so I work when I want, but sometimes I work all week, 7 days. Sometimes I take 2 days off. It's all over the place. And about that, so in Japanese, they're called black companies. Black companies are companies that do things illegally or under the table, or they work you crazy. The good thing about black companies, though, is that once you come out of a black company, everything else is easy. You know what I mean? So if you work your ass off at a black company for 2 or 3 years, you will know so much about how to make stuff. They will tell you, oh, can you do, I don't know PHP, but they'll say, Taran, you have to make an API using PHP because that's what the client wants. And I'd be like, I've only played with it. How am I going to make a full REST API for this project? But you just do your job. It's a black company. You work 6 days a week. But how much you learn in it 3 years, you're just, everyone will want you. So that's another thing about black companies. It's not all just negative outcomes. Okay, next one is bowing and business cards and business protocol. yeah, you're a foreigner, you can do all the bowing, but no one expects you to do this stuff. Like I'm not, I just do a little nod. I don't do the full 90-degree bow or 45-degree. Is there a 90-degree bow? What does that look like? Okay, anyway, so I don't do all the crazy bowing stuff so much, unless it's some like really Ed-eye top guy. Okay, maybe. But in general, they know I'm a foreigner. A handshake and a nice to meet you is perfectly fine. Don't worry about all that stuff, business cards, and you'll find out when you get it. Another one is people. I think people say you can't say no in Japan. You just have to be a yes man. And I'm trying to think of my experiences. Yeah, you don't usually say no. Maybe it's a culture where you have to say yes. And yeah, that's a bit difficult maybe because if you come from New Zealand or Australia, I don't know, there's so many people from all around the world watching me, and I've connected with you guys. Thank you so much. But saying no is not normal maybe. They would have to say something else, and then they'd have to promise it another time or another way. So yeah, saying no is not something you do around here. It's a bit difficult to explain. Another one is the income is low, and that's kind of true. In general, the way that Japanese companies have worked is that after they had it's not now, but before, very few companies have this, but it's a lifetime employment system. So you join a company and then stay in that company for the rest of your life, and they'll sort everything out for you, your pension, you'll gradually increase based on your age and experience in the industry, not so much how technically great you are. I mean, that's not all of course, but it was towards that side. And now things are changing where it's more based on your skill and what you can bring to the company. But that traditional system still is, it's still around. There's still quite a few companies still use this system. So when you have that type of system, when you're a junior developer, you will get you won't get paid much. That's just the way it is. You'll be treated as a new graduate, and the thing about Japan is that you can come from any type of degree and join a company as a marketer, a sales engineer. So the opposite for, let's say, Westerners, when you go for a job, they go, we want 10 years experience, 5 years, they have these, maybe not 10 years, but they'll say, we want 2 years experience for a junior dev. And you go, what? But I just graduated. How am I going to get the experience when everyone wants an experienced worker? And then they have these prices which they have to maintain. So no junior would go, I would work for, let's say, $15 an hour. No one's going to say yes, because there's some type of something in their mind saying, I deserve $1 million, or I deserve Facebook money. And it's like, no, you have nothing, you have proved nothing. So Japan you start from the bottom. And as you get older, as you grow, your income gradually increases. This is the general way of most companies. I was a bit lucky, and I kind of jumped a few years and got a bit more each time. But and that's also, so when you go to a let's say medium to large size company, you will see older guys, and you would find out somehow how much they make. People talk, and then when you find out how much they make compared to what they do, you go, that guy does not. He just sits down and makes jokes of the other old guys. So these kind of Gen X to boomers make a lot more, because that's just the way that the economy works. Economy works with companies. You stay long, you make more. For Japan, I'm not sure about your country, and maybe you can tell me how that works. Like, just because you're older, you can get more income. And then another one, if maybe you haven't heard, but I've never seen someone get fired I've never heard of anyone getting fired. So that leads me to know, I mean, you talk to anyone, they'll tell you is generally you don't fire people in Japan. It's strange to hear, right? And so I've seen it around me in the companies I've worked for. One guy didn't like coding in Node.js. And he said, I'm not going to do it. You guys said I was going to do this. So he wasn't working then. So they were paying him every month to not work. But what happens then is they either decrease your income or they give you a terrible position in the company. Not like toilet cleaner, but you might as well be a toilet cleaner, the way that you will be treated. You'll be pushed to quit rather than fired. And I think that's how a lot of Japanese companies are. They don't fire people. Another one was, I had a friend, a guy I know has a small 20-man coding company, development company, and one Indonesian lady, I think, was not working for some reason. She didn't want to do the code. I don't know what the details were, but I said to him, why don't you just fire her? He goes, I can't. I don't know if it was legal, maybe it was illegal, maybe, but I've heard it is not illegal, but it's a cultural thing, is they don't fire. And I think that's interesting because you might, if you've been paying attention to any of these startups in the Western world, they're firing hundreds of people at once. Maybe it happens sometimes in Japan, but it's not common, it's so rare. So basically you won't be fired unless you do something really crazy. So that's an interesting thing, isn't it? To not fire people. Then when you hire people, you'd have to be very careful who you hire, but that's a topic for another time. You won't be fired. And the last one is, it's a bit touchy topic, I like these touchy topics all the time, but discrimination was based on the country you come from. And if you come from, I think I have a viewer from Morocco, I think there's one from Vietnam. So if you come from a certain country, it's only natural that the country you're in will have a different opinion about you. For example, they look at me and they don't know where I'm from. Then I tell them I'm from New Zealand, they just say sheep. And that's the image of New Zealand, or, nice people or something. So forever they're going to act towards New Zealanders in that sense. And if you come from Korea, of course they have a different opinion. If you come from Taiwan, Japanese love you, because there's a history there that of course there was some tough times. Let's say one country fully taking over another one, but somehow the countries could make a positive outcome for both. I'm not sure if it's positive, I'm not trying to get the details here, but you will be judged based on where you come from, and it's just a fact, it's just the way it is. But if you go to a company and you work with the people one-on-one, they have a totally different opinion about you. So what am I trying to say here? People will treat you differently based on where you come from. Number one is where you come from, and then of course, if you look like Tom Cruise, everyone would love you. If you look like, who's another hunk? Zac Efron, everyone loves you. But if you look like me, it's a bit scary. Might be a bit aggressive. And it's totally not true, but that's just the way it is here. But especially in Japan, there's not many foreigners, so just don't be surprised when people are scared of you. I don't understand why we have to force them to be acceptable of my hairiness. And it's also, so if you want to rent a certain place, if you're a foreigner, you're not allowed to. If you want to use a certain service, maybe you're not allowed to because you're a foreigner. It's fine for me. I have no issue with that. And I don't understand why people are so butthurt about a country that doesn't have many foreigners to suddenly become become Auckland City. Like they just want everyone accepting right now my culture, my life, and it's like, no, we're in another country with over 95-6% is ethnically Japanese. So just be prepared for that. Just people are not going to understand. Oh, so I go from Morocco. I learned a bit about the history of Morocco and Europe and, this kind of stuff. And I can see the bloodlines are totally different than the middle of Africa and South Africa. And they don't know. A lot of people don't know. So just, or even Vietnam, people just don't know. And I think this country really doesn't know so much about. Some people think New Zealand is somewhere near England. Some people thought New Zealand was near Argentina. So, just the way it is. They even asked me, what language do you speak in New Zealand? Hey, it's just the way it is. So, there's some truths, interesting topics, some touchy topics. Let me know if you think I'm dumb or something. I don't know. See you soon.